in Homestead, kind of like right at the edge of that in Florida City. So we are like right at the upper part of the Keys. So you'd start here and launch your way down to Key West. And we're at Sean Callender's, one of his little shops he hangs out in. He's got this cool piece he's working on. Sean, let's hear it. What do you got?
It's a piece of mahogany. It's a largemouth bass. Don't normally do freshwater stuff just because I'm always saltwater fishing. But a couple little frogs. Nothing's glued in. It's all one piece. I kind of like the detaily stuff. What you were asking about a second ago was that the fish that's going to be around this side was kind of an afterthought. I had a little chunk sitting around, and I was like, you know what? We could fit another one back there. And he's going to have a bluegill rolling into his mouth. And I'm probably going to do like a bunch of pebbles and little shrimp and stuff on the bottom down there. It's going to have a couple, the lily pads and the pond grass going up to that. And then I thought the coolest part about it was we're going to do these little frogs up here. You know, one sitting there and one about to have a bad day. And then I think the piece wasn't really going to be a bass piece. It was going to be a frog piece. And everything else was kind of an afterthought, you know?
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in this wood, you'd be surprised how beautiful it is. You guys pretty much put clear on everything. I mean, for the most part, unless you
For
get
the most
real
part,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah,
so with
yeah.
so many tropical hardwoods down here, it's like stain's a bad word. I have gotten into painting a lot more, but that's because most of the stuff that we have here being subtropical is so ridiculously hard. I know everyone picks the hardest wood in their area and calls it ironwood, but like we actually have ironwood here, which you know, you watch sparks break off and stuff.
Get the thing the right way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were just busting the screws off a couple seconds
Oh
ago.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I was
yeah.
crying a minute ago. Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, but I'm stupid, and hard stuff resists my stupidity. So
yeah, we seen you go. Yeah, Sean will go a mile out of his way to do some detail.
Yeah.
And we have your name, bud. Ah, nice. And you're kind of learning from Sean, right?
Yes, I am.
Cool. And this is going to be your project right here. Looks like you're working on what, a pelican coming on there? Oh, perfect. Oh, and then you got a sample to look at.
Yeah, Sean's helping me out. Template, basically.
Oh, that's a great idea to give you the basic cuts. Yeah, can I zoom in on that? Oh, yeah. That's great. Great. Yeah, you know what? And Sean's a great teacher, so that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so you did a lot with a stock bar tip there. So we use that one. I keep that one on same. That's just a 12-inch with a sprocket tip on it. Yeah. And you know what? You run that real easy. So your wood's so hard and bouncy, you just go nice and steady and grind your way right into everything.
Yeah, because I'll eventually come back in with a smaller bar or a hand
something. Yeah, but you get the bulk out of there.
Yeah, I'm going to use 90% of it all with a chainsaw just because I don't want to have a whole lot to do. And normally what I do that's different is that I'll nibble down, and I guess everyone removes what's not supposed to be there, but you're doing it in reverse. Because, like I was telling you, a lot of guys get in love with their lines.
Yeah, because I see you just did you just left that in and you just ground away.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing stock removal down to wherever the musculature is and where the heights are. I'm looking at heights.
Okay.
And I'm not really looking at lines because then I'll come back in, redraw it, and then I'll clean it. But when I'm at that point, 90% of the work's already done. Because the problem is people, especially you say people have problems drawing. You know, when they draw something in. they're so in love with that drawing that they did,
Mm-hmm.
they get scared and they just sort of stagnate right there because they don't want to lose that line they just drew.
Sure.
So-
You're talking to that guy. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, if you sit there and you think about heights and levels, you can layer it down to where muscles are and fins are or feathers are or whatever it is, and you it saves the time.
Okay.
And so long as you don't undercut, like I always
You leave your place to retreat.
yeah.
Okay.
Because if I mess up, then I've got a little bit extra to
To
fuss
do that.
around with.
All right.
You know, so especially in layered pieces.
So the way you say that one more time, instead of being married to the lines,
You know, a lot of guys will tell you to preserve certain
yeah.
things, but I mean, you can't love your lines.
You're shaping.
Because
You're
eventually gonna cut them
shaping.
away anyway.
You were saying you start with the muscles and shape. You see you ordered that a certain way again.
Starting at, you gotta love levels.
Elevations.
Yeah.
Okay, different
So
levels and
if
elevations.
That's
the
the
word.
thing, and that's the closest thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm gonna preserve that. The moment I can see that that's defined, I drop it down to okay, the sides are gonna do this. I know that if I'm gonna make a detail piece, that if this fish is turning this way, then he's open this way. If he was turning the other way, then you've got muscle compressions where lines make sense because you're compressing.
Okay.
Which is an unconscious thing you're not going to see. But if they're not there and it's realistic, you're going to know something's wrong.
Okay.
So if you're going for a more realistic piece, little dumb things like that are what sort of set it off. But I mean, you don't have to do all that fun stuff. But I mean, it definitely makes you different than another piece would be.
Yeah, and you made quick business of that. So the moral of that story is, go the different elevations. Don't worry about your lines so much to an extent.
Because eventually you're going to cut them away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point. You do want to cut them away so that the piece is kind of defined by shape. If you're going 3D, if you're doing like relief carvings, then you can love your lines a little bit more.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Because then you're achieving depth with perspective, not with actually where things are.
Okay.
You know.
That makes great sense. And I'm married to exactly what you said. I get those lines like, oh, I can't, I don't. So you're just shaping your way in there and then kind of going with the different layers. Great. Yeah, and you got a little arc out of that fish. And that's a really tough piece of wood where you're at right there. I could tell it's kind of got crazy grain, and you just kind of gently grind your way down in there with that stock bar.
I'm actually coming into end grain doing it this way. So the transition is straight into the end grain. If I'm not nibbling like that, that transition when you go from where people mess up is when they're coming out of their cut. So if you're cutting along something, and by the time you get to, if I'm coming along here with a straight cut, the moment I get to here, it blows through faster.
Okay.
It'll accelerate.
Okay.
So you might go, oh damn, I just hit my lip.
Oh, okay.
Or oh, I just messed up. Or you come through here and it's so small it rolls. And you take it off.
Okay.
So if I'm this way and I'm just nibbling this way, and I'm just taking my time with it.
Mm-hmm. And I saw how you did it. Nice, easy idle, and just steady Eddie, and yep.
I'll drill an extra hole in my oiler. Or something.
I was wondering about that because I seen the oil pulling out of there, so I thought there was a trick. I was on my bucket list. So instead of I made my holes bigger, you drilled a totally extra hole to do that. That's a great trick. That's a great trick.
And the thing is that when you go to a different tool, especially like an abrasion tool, like a Fordham or a cut saw or whatever. Everyone gets worried about, oh my gosh, it's so oily, it's gonna whatever, and you're gonna cut that away anyway.
Okay.
You're gonna get to a point where it negates the fact that it happened, and half the time if you're doing like a really detaily high end piece, guys start to wonder about the finishes, so they go with an oil finish anyway.
Yeah.
And
I never had too much oil. I could clean it off. I clean it. Yeah. And you're carving down here. You're 99%. Something that's pretty dang hard. So that extra oil is helping you out. It's got to help you out.
Certain woods, like one of my favorite woods down here is wild tamarind, Lysomoma, and when the grain rolls over on itself, it burns.
Okay.
It is so darn like if you want to be mean to a kid, send him outside with an axe and tell him to split that stuff. Because it doesn't cleave along a grain line. You're not separating a grain line because it stair steps like this.
Oh, geez.
So when you abrade it, it rolls over and rolls over.
You can't split it.
And you can't split it. But it makes it beautiful. The iridescence and the pretty wood does that, and it's exceptional.
That's the only thing I've ever heard of like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's oops, and we're dropping stuff. But if I don't cut that way on woods like that, it's all black, it's all whatever, and then you got so much hand tooling afterwards to get rid of the burn marks. And it's maddening.
Awesome. Yeah, and I like that. I knew something was going on with the Oilers, so I was waiting. I was going to ask you after we were done. Yeah. So, well, thanks for all the awesome tips. That was great.
I learned a lot from you while you were here. I'm going to definitely get some smaller some smaller tips or something, I realize I'm working too hard.
Hey, I'm an old guy, so if I don't have to use a big saw for something, I'd rather spend the money for a little saw.
No, absolutely.
And yeah, why wear yourself out? And, you know, I'm a 12-hour-a-day guy a lot, you know. So beating myself up with something big just doesn't add up for me anymore at 59. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I got you. I'm right behind you.
that's
I'm right behind you.
well, hey, thanks again. Awesome piece. Awesome piece.